Hey everyone, DevTube episode 5 today, and I'm talking about IntelliTrace, a new feature in Visual Studio 2010 Ultimate Edition. So, IntelliTrace is what was known before in the beta release as historical debugger. So, today I'm gonna show you how you can use it in your project. So I'm just gonna launch a sandbox application right here. Okay, so I have some sample code here that's just for showing a task dialog. It's an an API call, but don't look at that. It can be any code. I'm just having some sample code. Now, what is IntelliTrace? It's a system that basically keeps track of whatever you are showing in your application. So at this moment, I don't have any breakpoints. I don't have any exceptions happening. So you see the IntelliTrace here keeps track of the information, but there's nothing to track as of now. For example, I have a task dialog function call. So I'm just going to put a breakpoint over here, for example, and I'm going to run the application. So once I run it and it hits the breakpoint, I can see on the right there is a debugger. Here is the debugger event. It shows where it started, where it originated. There's the main thread, and I can see the locals for this specific point. I can see the call stack. Now there's an event happening, so where's the breakpoint was set, and once again I can see the locals in the call stack here for it. So basically, it's tracking every single action. So by now it's all pretty simple. Like, it hit the breakpoint, it records it, but it's not only about the breakpoints. For example, let's take a look here. I have a for the button click event, I have a dynamic D variable and a d.send to printer. Well, D doesn't have a declaration for send to printer, but D being dynamic, which is another feature in C# 4.0, at compile time is not going to detect it. So I'm just gonna run the code like it is. Okay, once again it hits the breakpoint. I can see the recording here, but I go again. Now it's all good by here. Nothing happens. But once I trigger the event, and as you see, at compile time it did not detect that D doesn't have a send to printer event method. So once I hit the button, it throws an exception. Like, string does not contain a definition to send to printer, because sample here is a string. Okay, so right here I can see the events and I can see the gesture. That's the button was clicked, and you see where it's originating, and there's an exception thrown and exception caught, and once again exception thrown. So I can see all this stuff recorded. It's like the flight recorder for an airplane, but it's just for your application, for your project. Now you can customize the set of events that's gonna be shown in the log, let's say. So we open IntelliTrace settings and go to IntelliTrace events, and I can see all the events that are happening. So there's events for ADO.net, for ASP.net, for console, for data binding, like in WinForms and WPF, the controls that are bound to data. You can keep track of the values the environment variables use, the file manipulations, lazy variables initialization, registry work, threading, tracing, user prompt. Well, basically anything connected to it. Now you can see that if I stop the application, it's like all of a sudden IntelliTrace disappears, but in fact it is not going anywhere until Visual Studio 2010 is closed. Where it is located, it's on usually by default it's on disk C. It's in program data. and it's in Microsoft Visual Studio 10.0 trace debugging. And I see here the VS host. It's usually either the last or the one before the last file. So I'm just gonna open it, and here I can see this is the IntelliTrace summary for the last project I ran. So I can see the threads. They're right here. Those are the threads for the application for while it was running. So yeah, I can go through them. There are like, you can see all of them. And since I was running from Visual Studio, I can see the VS host, and so it should not confuse you. Now, system events, main thread, and all that. Now, if I click on a thread, I will actually go to the section where it shows me the report for the exceptions, and it will show me the call stack location. And if I go to the main thread, I can pretty much see I can browse the, so once no source is available for the call stack frame, but I can still be able to go through them up here. Yeah, so yeah, I actually will need to modify it, but yeah, I can see now on the right, I can see every exception, gesture. Gesture is a click, a press, whatever event was tracked. Now, you can find the system info for the computer where it was ran, the modules that were loaded, like all of them. Okay, so the thread list, it's pretty much the thread list is represented here, like all your threads. So and I can see the call stack, the locals for every exception, even if I am not currently in. And what's the nice part about it is I can see directly in code where it happened. So once I click the exception thrown, it shows me where it was thrown. You can see it's highlighted in red. And I can sort this kind of stuff. So you see by default it's getting all of them together. But even if those are not enabled in the settings, it still gets him here in the list. So I can just uncheck whenever I don't want to track threading stuff or whatnot. I can sort them by threads. For example, if I wanted only to track events in the main thread, so I can track them here, and that's pretty much covers the basic stuff about it. So by the way, once Visual Studio is closed, the files are removed, so it's only during the while it's running. So I would recommend you, if you have a backup setup, like a backup system, to remove the backup settings for program data. And this, you see the path here, the program data, Microsoft Visual Studio, because as you see, the files aren't that small if bound all together. So what we have here for IntelliTrace is we have 115 megabytes of 10 files, and you probably don't need it. That's temporary information for debugging. So yeah, that's the basic stuff about the IntelliTrace that you should know, and you should probably try it out in your application. It can save a lot of time and a lot of effort when you need to find what caused an error, because sometimes you just ran the application and there's some random error that pops up and you have no idea where it came from. So IntelliTrace help you find that and can help you catch the specific exception that can crash your application and you didn't know where it came from. So even without breakpoints and stuff, it gets the exceptions. So yeah, this is it for today's episode, and thanks for watching.